Good morning, everyone. This is Shaun with Integrity Ranch. Just out here getting a cup of coffee with the goats and the sheep. This here is the what I call the goat herd. So this has more goats than sheep. There's about 50 nannies in here and about 30 ewes. So we call it the goat herd. You could call it a flurd, call it what you like. The other flurd that we have has more sheep than goats. But I want to talk a little bit today about just the benefits of running goats, whether you're running them with your cows or with your sheep, running them behind your cows, behind your sheep. Especially on pieces like this. This piece is just, it was really run down, just almost useless. It was almost to the point of just being useless. There's 200 acres here. 27 acres of it is open, and the rest is just timber, and not good timber, like what you see here. You know, out of that little chunk of timber there might be like one or two logs that you could actually cut. The rest, it's just all young and real brushy. Set my coffee down here so we can walk over there. So for cows, that doesn't give you any feed, but for goats, you know, you can see they've opened up that bottom 5 or 6 feet in the trees there. And then you come out in the pasture and it's just a lot of, we've had goats on here almost 3 years now, goats and sheep, and not cows. And we're actually getting a lot of grass to come back because we're not only eating the grass. You know, the goats are actually eating a lot of this lesbediza. They're browsing on these persimmon sprouts. You can see there that little oak bush, they're topping that, and that's giving the grass the time that it needs to actually express itself, go to seed. And so the grass is actually looking a lot better. Versus when we had cows, they'd come in, they'd just chew the grass down to the dirt, and it wasn't that we weren't moving them, or it was just hard not to do because the piece is so small. And so switching to goats and sheep over here just made the world a difference. From a profitability standpoint, like, we could only run about 8 head of cows here, and that was more than we should have been running, really. They were eating too much grass. There was no stockpile for winter time. Versus, you know, we've got a pretty good size flurd here. They're doing way better. They're performing a lot better. This piece just fits goats and sheep more than it does cows. I mean, that's just the bottom line. And there's so many pieces that are like that. Another thing that has been really huge is the landowners did not like me using their ponds to water my cows in. But the goats and sheep, they don't care. You know, I've explained to them that the goats and sheep do not get in the ponds. They'll help keep the all the brush around the ponds cleaned up. And so I have a lot more options for water than I did with the cows. But yeah, just mostly it's all from a profitability standpoint. You know, on this piece, the goats and sheep just makes so much more sense. You know, we have way more product to sell at the end of the year. And then there's just the perks of goats and sheep in general. You can sell their babies, you know, at 4 months old, we wean and we sell. And so, you know, everything's born in the spring. We sell it in the fall before we start grazing any kind of stockpile. And then we just have the moms to take through the winter. And, you know, we can winter these on less than any cows. I mean, it's just the bottom line. cow, you know, a calf is born in the spring, you can't wean that thing until October or November. I mean, and that's, to me, that's probably too early. We really don't wean anything until like February. So you've got to take that calf most of the way through winter, feeding it precious stockpile or hay before you can get it sold. And, you know, that's not the case with these things. So yeah, I love our goats and sheep. I love cows though. You know, at the end of the day, if this was 200 acres and, you know, 190 acres of it was pasture, I probably would just have cows. I might use some goats and sheep to clean up some little bit of brush and weeds, depending on how bad that was. But there's just not very many cases where you live in a perfect world of all this nice, beautiful pasture. Most of the time, if you can get your hands on a lease, it's run down, it's grown up in brush, and it's just not that great of cow ground. But it is good sheep and goat ground. And that really is why we got into them to start with. So probably rambled on enough. We do still have some nanny kids available and some billy kids if you guys are interested. I'll have my email in the description on this video. You guys can send me a message and we'll work something out. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one.